There are so many sales books to choose from nowadays, it's difficult to decipher what's even relevant. I'll give you my thoughts on my few favorite sales books, but I might also add it's worth keeping in mind I have an engineering background and I have always sold rather highly technical products. So I don't think that this is a hard and fast rule. If you're in a different industry, you're in commercial SaaS versus like highly technical engineering, software engineering type of products, this may not apply. But if you are in highly technical sales, you're looking to break in as potentially an SDR at a tech company, I hope this can guide you and give you a good framework of how to select the books that might be most relevant to you. Again, I don't want to say that there's one book for you that's absolutely essential. But I will tell you, if you're trying to break into a tech company and don't have sales experience, one, I would recommend one book and one book only before starting to put yourself out there and also more focusing on getting into the job. Whereas if you do have some sales experience, you're looking to kind of fine tune and re-hone your skills, that may require a different book. So let's take the scenario that you're trying to break into tech, or maybe you're a brand new SDR, you just got your first sales job and it's more technical in nature. The book that I would recommend the most is Customer-Centric Selling. This is an old school book, but what I like about it is it was written by salespeople with tons of 20 years of experience plus. Some of them were former engineers. They also worked with former lawyers, etc. And to very oversimplify this book, what I love is that me, as an example, I'm coming from an engineering background and I'm selling a highly technical product. It is basically making the case that salespeople are not anything like you see in the movies, in traditional, maybe like car sales or high volume call center type of sales situations. And this kind of gives you a framework of how to think and deconstruct how you're focusing on the customer first. And if you are truly focused on the customer, what that entails. It doesn't mean you're throwing up about all the cool features that you have. It means you're intently listening. You're asking questions. You're anticipating things for them that they might not even be aware of. So you're painting a picture of where they're at now, not just what your product can do for them, but how it's solving challenges along the way that one, they may be aware of, and two, they may not be. I might add, if you disagree with me on any of these points, comment below. I'm definitely open to feedback. And again, I acknowledge that I'm in a very highly technical sales type of company where engineering and STEM type of backgrounds typically do well. So I'm definitely jaded in that direction. And I'm open to feedback as to books that you might like, whatever it may be. I know a very popular one is Fanatical Prospecting, and I'd say a little bit on this. And that one, I think it was written in a time where cold calling and emails were much more, you could get away with much less customization, particularly in a very specialized and highly technical field. I think this is a great book in that it outlines how you need to be very attentive to how you're blocking your time and actually blocking your time and executing on things like calls. Things that you may like to put off and procrastinate because at the end of the day, many people, while they can survive through phone calls, don't like them or prioritize them. I think there's value there. Instead of Fanatical Prospecting, I'd actually make a change here and say Deep Work is a great book to read. And what this does is it talks more about how to actually block your time and focus in greater quantities at a time and get more done in actually less time overall. You can definitely get some good things from Fanatical Prospecting, but at the end of the day, I think Deep Work is actually better and something that if you experience in your sales careers, you're going on, you'll realize the importance of making a point to turn off notifications on Slack, block time where you're turning your phone on vibrate, and in many cases, I put my cell phone in a different room altogether to make myself do calls uninterrupted, to make myself write custom emails and actually focus and not switch threads every 3 seconds with a Slack, with an email, etc. If you are new to sales, maybe you have a STEM background especially, and you're considering changing over to sales, I would 100% recommend Customer-Centric Selling first. Start there, that lays the foundation, and I think mentally takes off a burden that you don't have to be this like salesy person. The other two, a very, very common one, and one I would say when you dip your toes in sales, maybe you've done it for 3 to 6 months, is the Challenger Sale. You've probably heard of this, and I still think there's a lot of things that are relevant in the way that you can structure your arguments and conversations with prospects, the way that you can methodically bring in the value that your product brings, and the way that you can tactfully and respectfully challenge prospects on the ideologies or the methodologies that they're hanging on to that have made them unsuccessful to the point that they're now looking to you to potentially solve that problem. There's definitely value here, but again, I would say Challenger Sale is one. Ideally, you have a little bit of experience, maybe 3 to 6 months. Now you've dipped your toes in sales. This is gonna take it up a little bit and give you more precision. The last two I would also add, in no particular order, This, The Qualified Sales Leader, is a book by a former CRO from MongoDB. Highly valuable in that it makes a point of, and uses many cases in the field where sales folks had made assumptions, and he gives examples of entire departments of organizations that weren't quantifying anything of their results. They were, as an example, saying, oh, well, I know the lead engineer who is pushing this database product all the way up, and he'll really do a great job for us. And prior to this Sales Leader book and John McMahon, who wrote this book, people in management would accept that, and they would just take people's word for it without quantifying it, without probing further. And this does a great job of giving you a framework of how to ideally quantify, but certainly qualify everything all the way through, and make sure you're thinking through every single angle of your deal and giving an accurate representation of, one, the deal size, but two, the reality and percentage that it actually closes. So this is a book I would definitely recommend when you get to the point where you're actually closing deals. I really enjoyed this book. It's also by the people who made the Challenger sale, which is the Challenger customer. And in many ways, they're kind of focused on a few of the similar aspects, but this really points out how now with complex technologies, with large companies where you have multiple teams using multiple types of technology, this focuses on how you can enable a prospect within an organization to then have them challenge their organization internally and drive your deal for you. It's not that you just hand it over to them and say, hey, good luck, figure it out. But the reality is, especially as teams and software stacks and expertise gets more complex, it is incredibly valuable to identify a challenger customer in this case that's going to drive your business value up within an organization all the way to the top and to close. But again, to recap, if you're breaking into sales or you're just starting, I would 100% start with customer-centric selling. As you start to get some experience, I would look to challenger sale to give you a better framework now that you've actually had some experience, probably failing and succeeding some. Challenger sale is going to give you a framework to then more tactfully and more precisely engage prospects and move deals forward, whether that's from a qualifying perspective as an SDR, or maybe you're just starting out and closing deals and having to really get in buy-in from all stakeholders involved. I would also recommend Deep Work, but again, this is one that you want to have after you've actually done some work as an SDR, seen what works and seen what hasn't. At that point, you can say, hey, wow, I'm very inefficient in these different ways, and actually address it because you've actually already been in the role. Lastly, I would say Challenger Customer, as well as The Qualified Sales Leader by John McMahon. Those are great books when you're actually closing business. So probably as you're starting to ramp up towards maybe applying for your first closing role, maybe you're coming up on 8 to 12 months of experience as an SDR. These are gonna help give you kind of frameworks and ideologies of how you can work deals, work different prospects within accounts, and actually have a firm idea of how the deal is going to progress, what you can do about it, what you should enable others to do about it, and that way you're going to create a lot of visibility within your entire organization. So I hope that helped. Let me know if you have any other books you recommend, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.